Hey, everybody, welcome back to Bear Insider, Ultimate Insider. I'm Mike Pawlawski, former Cal quarterback, and today I'm going to cross the line. How about that? You know that I bring on offensive guys all the time. So I have the linemen in because I love the linemen, have the receivers in, I've got the running backs in, like all my guys come on, and quarterbacks, of course, are my specialty. But there's not a lot of crossover in defense all the time. But today we are crossing the line, and I'm talking to one of the, Cal greats who came through just after me at Cal, played with a bunch of my teammates, went on to be a first-round pick in the NFL, was a fantastic college player, was a really, really good, and I think way underrated NFL player as well. And so join me today, Duane Clemons, and you were part of a defense and a defensive line that came in just after our teams that I used to love to watch play. So welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, Mike P. Appreciate you having me, man. It's always great to be on.
Yeah, it's great. And like I said, we don't cross over defense all the time. And Chidi Ahanatu gives me crap all the time about it. Like I'll put something up on Facebook about our team, and it's always a picture of the offense. He's like, "What about the defense?" I'm like, "Stop it." But you guys, like when you guys came in, I remember when you and Reagan came in and thinking, and guys telling me about you guys and how good you were, and then watching you guys kind of grow and evolve and play was just amazing. How much fun was that for you coming in?
It was a magical time in Cal. You guys, I think the year before, we were ranked number 7 in the country when I got recruited. I actually got recruited by Bruce Snyder. And so I had already committed to Cal, and then there was the coaching change to Keith Gilbertson. But, people kind of really forget that Cal was on such a rise right at that point in time. And I think number 7 in the country, beat Clemson in the Orange Bowl. And coming in as that freshman, there was a lot of great leadership. You also had some excellent players with Stussy and Sean Dawkins and all these first round guys, and even Chidi, and Mac Travis, who probably should have been an NFL guy if it wasn't for his injuries. There was so many great players to kind of emulate. And coming in as a young guy and being able to start as a freshman and kind of being there in the mix, it really, I didn't come in with that much confidence. I'll say I was, pretty like, okay, I thought I was undersized. I thought I was, lanky. And, I just didn't know until we got on the field, and, I'm with all these All-Americans, all these All-State guys. And, I'm a SoCal guy, but I had no idea who I was in that locker room and on the field until we got out there and we started moving around, and I was like, okay, I can jump higher than these. Oh, dang, I'm faster than these guys. Okay, I do have some things that I'm a little bit better. And then when the coaches started to recognize, okay, I'm actually beating some of the number 2s and the number 1s in practice. And then, Scott Roseman was there, and I was watching his technique, and I was watching Chidi's technique, and I found that I was picking up things faster than some of the other guys. And then when coach gave me the nod, like, yeah, you're going to dress. And, the other freshmen are looking at me like, holy crap, Duane, yeah, she dressing as a freshman, so it was a great time to come in, and it was just, amazing to kind of come in on the heels of that much success and kind of be able to learn from those great players and actually get a chance to play as a freshman, as a sophomore, and as a junior.
Yeah, and you named some dudes that I absolutely love. Mac Travis was, just such a great dude. Love him. Scott Roseman was my hunting partner. So we would play our game, right, Saturday, and then you'd do, Saturday night after the game, you do what you do, and then we'd wake up at like 3 a.m. Sunday morning, and we'd drive out to go hunt, and we'd hunt up until the last second that we could get back for treatment. And so we'd jump back in the car and we'd haul butt just so we could make it to treatment in time that we didn't have to run stadiums. And so Rose was my dude now. He was I loved Rose. We spent a lot of good times in a duck blind and fly fish together. So, but some great dudes. And you go along that defense, you had Jarrett Willard, right?
Oh my God. I didn't even get to linebackers.
Right? Yeah. Absolute beast at linebacker.
Mick Barsala.
Oh, Mick Barsala Mick was still there. You had some dudes. You had some dudes that you played with that were.
Don't forget Paul Joyner. If you wouldn't have had that card to it, I think Paul Joyner would have been a first round draft pick too. And then
for sure, really good football player. Dante DePaula back there at yeah. So Mike D. I forgot about that too. Outside GZ, right? Greg and
Harrison Gregg.
Yeah. We're going back down in history here, right? There were some dudes on that squad. What was it like for you? Because you and Reagan Upshaw came in the same year, and I remember when the.
Well, I was a year before him, And so Reagan he came to be after me. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was a
You
true
guys were on that
I was
line
a true
together.
sophomore when he was a true freshman.
So you were a freshman with Chidi,
Right.
and Chidi was gone. And
Yeah.
then now Reagan plugs into that too, right?
Yeah. And so that's the thing. They expected us to take a big step back because we lost Chidi, Scott Roseman, and Mac Travis all in that same class. And then all of a sudden it was Brad Bowers, me, and who else? I can't remember who was in the middle. But, definitely some different guys. But, and then once Reagan came in, it kind of forced me to have to be able to play left and right and inside. And so that was one of the best things that happened. I was really starting to take off as a right end. And then I kind of felt, I remember when coach told me, like, well, look, Reagan only knows how to play right end. You can play left and right. I need you to move over to left. And I felt kind of slighted, like I was getting off over here. But then he had all that success. But then I realized I learned how to play all four positions up front because of that. And then by the time the draft came, I felt like, okay, this is why I can have a longer career because I can play everywhere.
Oh, for sure. It's tough being a swing guy sometimes, isn't it? Like you have to know so much more. And there's a thing about specialization. There's two things about it. One, if you're a specialist, it locks you into that one specialty.
Yeah.
But if you're a specialist, you get to focus on that and rep that move or that detail, that technique over and over and over again. And reps are really what make us better players, right? Getting the reps, doing what we do. And so, but being a specialist is not a specialist, but being a utility, a swing guy who can play kind of every position also has its benefits in terms of where you play. It's just hard to be the superstar when you're the swing guy, right?
Absolutely.
So,
but
talk about your teams back then.
So we went to the Alamo Bowl, I think in '93. So we had another good year. '92 was a little rough. I think we kind of
the transition year. It was, yeah. So you know how it is. You go to the NFL, and all of a sudden you're so focused on your deal that you don't get to watch as much. And so I saw like the Kansas game that year or whatever. But I talked to Dave Barr all the time. We had a tradition. So we had a tradition with quarterbacks when Troy Taylor left, Troy would call me before every game. And so when I left, I would call Dave before every game. And so we kind of kept that tradition. And Dave butt dialed me like 6 times yesterday, by the way. But so I still talk to, those guys all the time, which was great. And I love the quarterback stuff. But you had some good dudes on offense too. 92, disappointing. 93 though, you guys kind of found your stride.
Absolutely. And that was a great year. Got to go, it was the best because we got to play Hawaii the last game of the season. And then the alumni paid for us to stay a couple extra days because we got our bowl bid to go to the Alamo Bowl. So we ended up almost having like 2 bowl weeks. That was like probably one of the best memories at Cal. And then after that, we just, Dave Barr left, and I think Pat Barnes, was a freshman, maybe a sophomore, but he really struggled his first year on the field. And I mean, it worked out for me in the sense I got a lot of reps on defense. I mean, we definitely got a chance to get our stats, but we didn't win many games. And then pretty much I left, Reagan left, but we brought in a host of guys, Jeremy Newberry, Tarek Glenn. It was kind of like iron and sharpening iron those years. Stussy used to beat the shit. I'm so sorry, beat the crap out of me and Reagan.
Fine, we're good.
And, I remember those days, Ducey was squatting 700 pounds, and it was kind of like setting that bar, and it was just like, okay, so this is what it's going to be like when I get to the league. And so going against guys like Stussy every day, and then Tony Gonzalez and those young guys like Terry Glenn moving off the tackle, we were beating the crap out of them every single day. So I feel like Tony Gonzalez really probably had the hardest collegiate football life for 2 years because just think every single rep, it was either Reagan or me.
Right.
Every day, every single day. And I just remember like, man, and I remember us laughing about it. Me and Reagan used to laugh about it. Man, we're going to slap this little punk ass, he's a little basketball player around. And it was just like, we would just try to dog him. And, but Tony was scrappy and he would fight. And it was just like, I know by the time we left, we hardened him. And I'm sure after that, it was just like, listen, I went against 2 first rounders every single day, no matter which side, right, left. So, I mean, he was prepared. And I think Terry Glenn, I remember when he moved from defense to offensive tackle, and I remember just wearing him out that first, when he was just trying to get his legs under him. It was just like, it was just crazy how we were so competitive, and we were nasty. We were a salty group of guys. And, I think we got that from like Mac Travis and cheating, and then we had Mike Waffle. Our coach was
He's nasty.
I mean, one flew over the cuckoo's nest. I mean, Mike Waffle was a screw loose kind of guy. So we used to have a minute of madness before practice where all of us put on a pair of boxing gloves and we go fight in the tunnel for a minute. And then we come out to practice. Like, I mean, we were like, I don't think people realize how screwy we were. And, but I love that. That's how we were. So I think we kind of had that edge.
I love that too. That's fantastic. And it's funny that the thing that people don't realize, you were the last class that was recruited by Bruce Snyder. The number one attribute that Bruce looked for when he recruited players was toughness. That was the number one thing. And you could see it in his teams across the line. My left tackle was Troy Ozine. He came out of, I think it was Bishop Amat down south. And he was a dude who came in at like 220, maybe. He was thinking he was going to be a tight end or a defensive end, and they knew all along he was going to be a tackle. But he was nasty. Like he was just, we used to call him Mean Ozine because he was just a mean dude. Like you get on the football field and he did not give a shit about you. He would just as soon choke you out. But then he had to go against Kenny Harvey, right? And Tua Tagovailoa and Joe Nelms and all these guys who played in the NFL, right? And we still had Joel Dixon, yeah, exactly. And then we had Majette Whiteside too, right? So all these dudes who were really good football players who all got a shot in the league or were pretty high picks. Nate played with Cincinnati for a little bit. So they were really, really good football players. Kenny is a first-round pick and played for over a decade, So just there's just a history of that at Cal that people overlook when they think about the program, because the top end success in terms of national prominence and all that, other than our team, there wasn't a lot of it, right? And so, but there are some phenomenal football players. I'll ask you this question. We talked about you and Reagan playing together. Do you think that helped you both in the fact that they couldn't really isolate on one dude?
Well, I actually feel like it helped us both because I think we were competing with each other. It was never about the guys in front of us. It was about, I'm trying to get to the quarterback. I got to beat Reagan to the quarterback. I got to beat Reagan to the running back. So I think it creates this feeding frenzy mentality where we never once went into a game thinking about the dudes in front of us. I can't think of one guy I played against, probably my last two. I mean, and I take that back. I mean, Baselli might have been the only guy I might have said, okay, and then Jonathan Ogden. Are the only two guys I can think of, but I had great days against both of them. So I don't ever remember going into a game worried about the person in front of me, at least not my last 2 years. I was always worried about beating Reagan. And it was always like, because, he was a 10-sack guy. I was a 10-sack guy. So it was like, I got to get there before him. And then we had young Brandon Whiting, who was a little pup, and he was starting to eat too. And so, that was to me, the most fun thing is just like we were so competitive against each other. Sometimes I think we even forgot that, okay, these guys across from us are going to be a factor too, except for
supposed to block us.
Yeah, one or two guys. But that was when I think about it, that was hilarious. Me and him going at it in the huddles, like, I'm going to beat your ass. Like, me and him with John, and then the other team looking at us like, are they fighting? Are they mad at each other? It's like, nah, we like brothers. But that's how we got down in the huddle. We beat mother MF each other like,
I'm gonna beat your ass there. I'm gonna beat your ass, doing this thing that he does.
Yeah, it was they had to be so confused. Like, are they pissed off at each other? And then it was just like, man, what's he gonna do to me?
So funny. I came back when Reagan was a freshman. I came back from Tampa, and I had held the quarterback clean record. And he was up there cleaning, and he had like 185 on the bar or something like that. I don't remember what it was. He's like, how about that, quarterback? How about that, quarterback? And I look at him, I go, shit, put some weight on there. Like threw 225 on there, whew, racked it out. I said, come back and talk to me when you can do that. And so like a year before he took off, I come back and he's got 3-something on the bar and he's clean pulling it. And he looks at me and he's like, how about now, quarterback? I'm like, yeah, you got me now. You win. So, but you better get a liner, right?
Absolutely. You better have
energy. Yeah.
Yeah. He definitely was a weight room giant. That was one place where I had I was no competition for him.
Yeah. So talk to me about this. You were a SoCal guy, like you said. Tell me your high school again.
Riverside North.
Riverside North. And so we actually played you guys in baseball when I was a senior. Actually, when I was a junior too, we lost to you guys in the CIF playoffs. at Troy High School. But then my senior year, we played you again, and we beat you guys, and we went on to the playoffs to win the whole thing. So we have a little tie in there in terms of our high school.
We're up.
Yeah. But what made your decision to come to Cal? You talked about the team that we had already, but there's always more than just that. What was your decision?
Well, the prestige of the degree. I mean, I think anytime, and obviously everybody who grew up in Southern California wants to go to USC, wants to go to UCLA. Those are the schools that are right down the street. Everybody saw them. I had 2 teammates that went to UCLA. And so I got snubbed by both of those schools. And they recruited guys in my area, and I can still remember one guy, like the guy USC took, his name was Kyle Wildtoast, went to Norco High School, never pissed a drop. I don't even know if he ever played a drive. And then I remember the guy that UCLA took from our area, and I can't remember his name, but I was a little pissed off, and I wanted some get back. So, the fact that Cal had an amazing degree. I mean, when you went there on the trip, it was such a beautiful campus. I mean, I don't think you can walk on a more beautiful campus and see, to be able to see the view from our weight room back then was just amazing.
Amazing.
And then you guys were on the rise. I mean, then you were ranked number 7. It was like all the things lined up perfectly that it was like, okay, it may not have been the school I dreamed about once I actually put it all together and seeing what you guys were offering. It was like, yeah, this was a no brainer compared to like Colorado and some of the other schools that I was looking at in the middle of BFE. I was like, this is actually cool. I get to be in a city, but not directly in a major city. That's the kind of cool thing about Berkeley. You got access to Oakland and Frisco in minutes, but at the same time, you feel like you're in a college town.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that part about it too. You're not in Inglewood. You're not in LA, right? You're not downtown or SC where you're literally downtown. You step 2 blocks off of campus. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? So
Absolutely.
yeah, no. And Berkeley's nice. It's still kind of sheltered up in the canyon, up in the hills, but it's also, like you said, super easy access. And the view, I came on my recruiting trip, and so Mooch recruited me out of high school, Mariucci. And then Terry Shea was my quarterback coach. And when I showed up, they were just getting settled, right? That was Bruce's first year. And so he had just put his staff together. They were all trying to get figured out. And I show up in Terry Shea's office, and Terry goes, well, why don't you walk outside the doors and go take a look from the top of the stadium? I was like, oh, okay. And it was this crystal clear January day. I mean, it was just as beautiful as the Bay Area gets. And I walk up, and I'm, hadn't seen it yet. And I walk up to the top of the stadium, and I look out, and I'm like, oh, like, take your breath away, beautiful. And it was lit up. Yeah, it was so striking. I'm like, this place is amazing. It is like, this is incredible. And then here's the punchline to all this. I'm like, well, I'm going to go jump on check out the turf. And so I come walking down the stadium, and you saw that stadium, come walking down the stadium, and I go to jump from the bottom rail to step on the top of the wall and kind of hop over. And I just miss my foot on the wall and go, boom, and I fall face first onto the turf coming off the wall. And I pop up, I look around, I'm like, okay, nobody saw that. We're good. But that was my first introduction to the Berkeley turf, was to fall off the damn wall.
Did you get a little cherry on your forehead?
I didn't. I had my hands out. I was good. I landed like an athlete, but I did not look like an athlete on the way down. It was bad.
Did they kind of check a box like, okay, maybe not?
Yeah. I never did that again. So at least I'm a learner, right? I know how to learn.
Don't show off, huh?
Don't show off. Then don't try stupid stuff. Okay, so your Berkeley experience, you have it. You go to the Alamo Bowl. You end up being a first-round pick in the NFL.
Yeah.
What were your expectations going into that draft? And then what about the NFL? What about that experience did you not expect?
Well, I think going into the season, I was just beginning to understand what going to the NFL meant. Because, luckily I got to see what happened with Russell White. I got to see Sean get drafted. I got to see Stussy get drafted as high. So I, got a chance to be around it, but I wasn't intimate with it. I didn't know anything about, how to deal with the agents. And, I came off and I didn't have my first agent was clueless, and he was just a guy that I had met in Oakland, and, but then finally I got with Lee Steinberg, but that wasn't until closer to the draft. So I missed a lot of opportunity to prepare for the combine, having the right, people around me as far as like training, nutrition. So I felt like I came into the draft unprepared, and I felt like I was lucky to get picked at number 16 because I skipped the Senior Bowl, not Senior Bowl, but the that's the one that Mel Kiper hosts, the Aloha Bowl, I think it was called the Aloha Bowl or something like that.
Hula Bowl, right?
Hula Bowl, yeah, Hula Bowl, that's what it was. And so I really missed a lot of opportunities because I was actually, a lot of people thought I could have won in the top 5, but, not participating, not having the right, I guess management and not really seizing opportunities to really be with the best trainers and really get ready. I think my stock kind of dropped. But I remember going into draft day thinking I might still be in the top 5. And then once I started falling, I remember almost kind of like panicking, like, am I going to be one of those guys that doesn't get picked? Because, by the time I got with Lee, I realized there were so many things I didn't do right. And I was like, man, am I still even in that? So, being picked number 16 seems like, a really great spot. But, Reagan had already gotten picked at like 11. And it was like, I started thinking like, man, I'm not going to get picked in the first round. I'm going to be sitting here on TV. And I was at New York at Madison Square Garden behind the skirt. And I just remember the cameras coming back and forth like, oh, well, everything about this guy. And then they go away. And then it's like, oh, maybe this is like, man, stop playing with me.
Yes. It's so subjective, right? That is so subjective. You think about all the guys who do get picked and get picked high, and like the team dynamic to football is the part that everybody misses. Because you can be a phenomenal football player and be on a bad team and get overlooked. You can be a phenomenal football player, be on a good team and be overlooked because they say, oh, the team around you, right? My draft experience was different. I was with Lee right out of the gate. But I was supposed to be, Phoenix had actually called me and said, you're going to be our first pick. And they had the first pick of the second round. Like, you're going to be our first pick. And Jerry Rome, who was a quarterback coach there, really good guy. Like, he and I talked all the time. Well, the draft comes, and I knew that Phoenix had fallen in love with me, but the Rams and the Bucks and everybody had come out to work me out and had really talked to me. And they're like, yes, we really like you. The Rams, Ted Tollner he said, look, you'd be my guy, but we're not picking a quarterback until the 8th round. So there's no way you're around. Anyway, so the draft day comes, and the first round comes by. I'm like, okay, here we go, Phoenix. And they picked Tony Sacca.
Oh, man.
And I'm like,
what the hell happened?
Yeah, what happened? Like, and then, and Mooch got the job in Green Bay, and Mooch isn't picking me. And now Mel Kiper had me as the number 2 guy in the draft behind David Klingler, right? And so all of a sudden, other quarterbacks started to go. Matt Blunden from Virginia, who Matt was a really good dude. We were on the card together, but he's just stiff, 6'7", like, I didn't get it. I knew David was going to be the first round guy, right? They're talking about him for the Heisman, and he just threw up ungodly numbers. But then some other guys were going. I'm like, I'm not getting this at all. Well, Mooch calls me. He's like, Holmgren told me we're not taking. We're going to cut our quarterback that we take. He's going to be a camp arm for us, maybe a developmental guy, and he had to do that with his quarterback coming out. So we're not doing that with you. And he goes, so this I would take you right now, but we're not doing it. We're not. I'm not going to he doesn't want to do that to our relationship. I'm like, okay. Then so I keep moving on.
Just get me off this goddamn board.
Yeah. And so then they draft, the Bucks trade with the Rams for a pick to move up 2 spots to pick me in the 8th round, finally in the 8th round. I'm like, oh, what the, wow. But the Bucks had already drafted Craig Erickson, another quarterback ahead of me. I'm like, so the long story is timing is everything. And it doesn't matter where you go. It's all about opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And especially at the quarterback position, because you don't, like, there are way more guys who could play at that level than organizations who provide the opportunity for guys to play at that level. You know what I mean? Like, they don't give the guys the opportunity. They don't give the guys the support they need to play there. I mean, Kurt Warner is a prime example of it. Kurt is great. Kurt is a phenomenal football player. Kurt is a golden jacket. Kurt, when he came out of the Arena League, was the 5th highest rated quarterback in the Arena League, right? Yeah. And so and this is no knock on Kurt. He's a phenomenal football player. But there are other guys in that league who could also play.
I feel like quarterbacks where they get it wrong the most. I mean, look at guys like Warren Moon and guys that had to play years in other leagues just to even get a shot before they recognize.
Yeah, Kurt got cut in the NFL, right? He came out. Mooch cut him. Mooch brought him in, and then they cut him. So it's just that's where they miss the most. And you have to support everybody. Like you have to have the O-line, you have to have all that stuff. So talk to me about your NFL experience. About you learned as a rookie, you get better, you improve. What did you learn? Like I said, I think you were a super underrated player. Your sack numbers were good. Like your efficiency was really good. So talk about your NFL experience.
So I came into a situation where I think, unfortunately, when I got drafted as a rookie to the Vikings, I was already around a bunch of really good linemen. I got to play with Chris Dolan, John Randall. And so I had these great players around me. But if I'm being honest, I didn't really have a D-line coach to coach me. I didn't really have a linebacker coach to coach me. These were more guys that I felt like the head coach's buddies. And so the only thing I could really do is they made a decision that, hey, you're going to spend half your time playing outside linebacker, half your time playing defensive end as a rookie. And it was just like, it was almost impossible. You go to half the linebacker meeting, and then you go to half the defensive end meeting, and then you take the twos with the linebackers, then you take the threes with the D-line, and you're just running around with your head cut off. And every day was just impossible. And so I came out, had the best preseason, had 2 picks, 2 sacks in back-to-back games. And then by the third preseason game, coach wouldn't even put me back on the field. So I felt like I got caught in a little bit of a war. At the time, the Vikings had 9 owners, and my head coach wanted to be the general manager and the head coach. And from what I understand, there was a conversation where if he didn't get to decide who he picked, and I believe he wanted the running back, I think he was trying to get Eddie George. He wanted the running back, and the general manager, Big Boy, didn't pick me, and he just kind of said, well, I won't play him. And so it became a point of contention that my success basically was a direct threat to his, I guess, ascension to general manager. So it's like for literally my first 4 years, I would literally go on the field, have a 2-sack game, 3-sack game, and I'd only play like literally half the snaps as Johnny, half the snaps as Dole, but I would have the same numbers, and it just became like, okay, clearly. And then I remember going to his office one day pissed off, like, what do I got to do to prove I'm starting? He's like, you'll never be a starter. And then I actually didn't come to practice the next day, and it just became like the big blow up. And then basically he called I didn't even have an agent at that time. I think I was, I was just by myself, but my position coach at the time, who I love, Andre Patterson, convinced me to come to practice, and then he just let me be a starter for the rest of the year. But then at the end of the year, he told every coach in the league that I was a head case and sabotaged them. So I had to kind of, dig out from that hole.
Well, that's the thing too, right? You get these guys who are doing their ego stuff, and there's actually more of that in the NFL from what I was exposed to than there is in college, which is crazy. Although I'm sure college is going that way now with all the free agency and everything going on. Like I saw more egos and less good coaching in the NFL. Now, maybe Bruce had a great college staff, right? But all the college staffs that I've seen, and I've been broadcasting since, have been good. They're pretty solid. You'll have a guy here and there, probably your tight ends coach most of the time, who's a miss but most of them are good coaches. In the NFL, I was underwhelmed by the coaching, and it's like they're not coaching anybody. They bring you in and expect you to be the guy already.
And that's what you find in a lot of situations, but fortunately, having a guy like Mike Waffle, I had such a great coach in college that, my fundamentals were sound. And then being able to go to a team like that had John Randall and had Chris Dolman on it, I had some big brothers in the huddle that, I could literally watch their film every day, and I learned everything I needed to know just by watching it. So I guess that's also another reason why some of these coaches can survive, in the sense that, you're going to have a successful D lineman when you got John Randall, Chris Dolman, and, you look like a great coach. It doesn't, how do you quantify what you did? I mean, did you really make them great, or are they just doing a great job?
My guys are all pro.
Absolutely. And so I think it becomes subjective in the NFL in a way, but I think a lot of people give opportunities to their brothers and their cousins and their brother-in-laws. And so you just see that, and it's just part of the game. But, you as a player, you have to figure it out one way or another, how to become the best of the best, whether you got to watch other people, or you might even have to go hire your own consultant. I know I used to go upstairs, and actually we had one of our scouts, Paul. God, what was Paul's last name? He was one of the great Cleveland Browns, Paul. Back in the day. But he used to go up there and he used to take notes for us on different players and stuff. And I remember every week I would go up there and I would meet with him. And, he was my guy. He would tell me like, oh, this guy drops his inside hand, or this guy doesn't punch fast enough. This guy you can beat with your footwork. This guy you should use this move on. And so he was like my little ace in the hole. And I learned to really dissect my opponents from him, and really learning how to be a pro in that sense, like off the field when you're like trying to figure out your game plan. And I feel like between watching Johnny and having that guy upstairs, he gave me an intellectual edge that, I feel like only a Cal guy would sit there and dial into. Like, man, really being able to do the homework and see the details that, most guys are just thinking about beating guys with their talent. And it's like, nah, I'm seeing the tendencies and actually having that conversation with myself about what I'm going to do.
That is awesome. That is like, if there's one thing that people at home should take away from this conversation, it's that, right? Doing that extra thing, finding that mental edge. That's, as a player, that is so key. And which brings me to my next question. That is such a Cal guy thing to do. Like, as a Cal, you were always a Cal guy, even as defensive lineman, right? Back in the day, like defensive linemen, some of them aren't necessarily, the sharpest cats in the box. However, I mean, you were always a Cal guy. You were always a guy who was sharp, who was good, with the media, who was good, like at everything that you did. Talk about kind of your experience now with Cal. How much have you been involved? How much have you been back? Kind of what's your connection with the school now?
Well, I'm sad to say that it really hasn't been a strong one. I live so far away. I'm out in the opposite. I've been in Maryland since like 2015, and then I was in Kansas before that. So a lot of my time and energy has gone to being part of the Kansas City Chiefs organization. I'm still working with them as a Chiefs ambassador. And then with all the stuff that I'm doing on the East Coast now, I haven't had a lot of opportunity to really go to the Bay Area and really be consistently in that environment. And so, I would love to kind of be in a situation where I guess there were, more intentional opportunities to kind of be put back in a situation where, it did feel like, okay, they're trying to create a opportunity for me as much as, I would love to have the opportunity to come back. But I feel like, between playing for the Vikings, the Chiefs, and, all those professional obligations, football season usually ends up drawing me to the NFL world. And, I kind of I go where the love is. And so,
Yep,
the Vikings are consistently doing their things for us, and the Chiefs are consistently doing great things. And so I'm constantly getting pulled in those directions. But, I would love to see more events and more intentionality of, trying to create our alumni base and actually make it a thing, so that not only we on the inside, we know Cal, we know about our brotherhood, but, when you're trying to compare yourself to like the Ohio States and the Michigans and the Floridas and the powerhouse schools, I felt like Cal has always had first tier talent. It's just something has been missing. And I feel like that, I guess that rallying around football and really letting Cal be a football dominant school, I feel like it's almost like we don't want to be known for a football program that dominates the headlines, that's in the national news. And I feel like that's coming back to haunt us now, because there's so much money and so much big business at football. Cal had, the bull by the horns in the early 90s. And I feel like if we would have really been more intentional about like, listen, we're going to make football a national thing. Like, we're going to basically really do everything we can to pour into this program and make these kids want to stay here for 4 years, for their fifth year, and, create that rarefied atmosphere that some of these universities have, that, these people are involved and they're never going to stop being involved because their experience was so great. I think, I was talking to you earlier, trying to live in the Bay Area for $700 a month. That's a hard experience. And, I think anybody would want to end that experience as soon as possible. So I feel like we lost a lot of great players early. I think I left as a junior, Reagan left as a junior, Tarek left as a junior, Tony Gonzalez left as a junior Newberry. And we were all on the same team at one point. It was just like, I imagine if we could have kept that nucleus and all of us would have stayed for that one extra year, would that have put us over the hump when we were winning the Pac-10 title and competing with Oregon and USC and really actually dominating those schools? Because, I felt like at the end of the day, in almost every draft, our players were drafted higher than almost every other player in the Pac-10. Like, when it came to draft picks, we were always had guys. And then if you look at our Hall of Famers, I mean, we got a lot of guys that are going to be HOF coming out of that Cal program. So I just hope that at some point they can get the genie out of the bottle and actually make Cal flourish and be able to invest and make it someplace that everybody recognizes as a powerhouse, and not be kind of ashamed to be like, listen, a football powerhouse is not a bad thing. It doesn't diminish the intellectual capacity or the relationship that the world has with Berkeley as an institution.
Right. And so, I mean, to that point, what I would say is excellence doesn't happen in fiefdoms, right? Excellence doesn't happen in silos. Excellence for the university means excellence in everything that you do. And so if we're trying to inhibit somebody else because we're worried about the fact that it might influence us or might, take away from our resources, then we're not truly excellent with those resources. If somebody else has to be less because you need to be more, then you're not really excellent. But if we can all be excellent at what we do together, and if we can support all of that, that synergy just builds so much momentum for everybody on campus. It just makes it exceptional. And so, but if people are infighting and if they're worried about losing resources because of that, then that's always going to be a problem. And your assessment, I agree 100% with. I get to see it as a radio broadcaster around the school. So many people have so much love for football, but then there are some that want to hamstring it a little bit so that it doesn't reach the potential that it could. And that's an issue, right? And you don't need to overshadow anything. We can all coexist and be exceptional together as long as we just allow that to happen and support one another. And I just think that's the key. And bring guys back. Like, there should be outreach to bring Duane Clemons back. Duane Clemons is a legend. Duane Clemons is a stud. You were a guy who did so much for Cal. People should be reaching out to you to bring you back. So I'm glad I have you on today. What are you doing now?
Well, as a matter of fact, I just spent at the Super Bowl time on my podcast interviewing two Cal legends. I got to interview Ron Rivera, who I believe is now back with the Cal program.
Just announced it yesterday.
Yeah, we talked about that on my on the Ed Block Courage cast, and so that was kind of cool to be a part of breaking that news as a Cal alumni, one Cal alumni to another. And I also got to interview Lee Steinberg, both of our former agents, and spent some time with them at the Super Bowl. So working with the Ed Block Courage cast has been an amazing opportunity that just kind of came out of my relationship with the Chiefs as the Chiefs ambassador. I came to the Courage Cast Awards to accept his Patrick Mahomes Award, and we had such a good time. And me and the co-host had such a great synergy that they asked me to stay on and asked me if I would actually host the podcast with them. And so now it's been just over a year now that I've been kind of working with these guys, and now we've just grown the podcast exponentially. And I mean, we've had so many great people on there. I mean, I literally a couple of weeks ago, I just interviewed Jason Kelsey, at the podcast at the World. We interviewed Mike Evans. We had, Grady Jarrett on the podcast. And so, the reach that we're able to have, and with not only current players, but the former, I interviewed Chad Johnson at the Super Bowl. So many Hall of Famers. John Randall was on the podcast with me, and it's just so fun to kind of be able to be on this side of the media. I don't think when I was a player, it's hard to respect guys that never crossed that white stripe, and then they're trying to pick you apart, and you're looking at these guys like, who the F are you to have an opinion on me when you ain't never did it? But now it's so much fun to be able to be a guy that listen, I've walked a mile in your shoes. So when I'm talking to a player or when I'm doing an interview, I feel like, we're talking as peer to peer, and I can feel the difference. And, when guys come on our show, they can feel like, hey, these aren't guys that are just, having opinions. These are guys that understand what it is to be a player on the field, off the field, to know, like, you have to come home, trying to be the best Pro Bowler you can be, trying to be the best husband, trying to be a father, dealing with injuries, beat the crap. That's a whole different reality, I think, that people don't see full circle. And we're able to kind of speak to those things and kind of talk to these people about the entire picture of their life. I mean, we've interviewed players that have lost kids, and, we're able to touch on those really hard subjects, the things that you deal with off the field that I think sometimes the media loves to sensationalize our worst days. But, they don't realize in all those tragedy, there's some triumph. And, and we try to bring, light to situations that were tough, but then we show that there's victory after the fall. And, I think that's been kind of the sentiment around the league. And we're starting to see more and more players that want to come on the show and want to be a part of it, because, we are positive, but we're talking about sometimes the worst day of their career when they had a major injury, because that's the only way to get this award. Your teammates got to vote for you and basically recognize you went through a traumatic injury and you were able to come back and be able to make it back on the field. And that's a hard thing to do, to keep a job in the NFL, especially after a hard injury and then going through some of the things these guys, from cancer to like I said, deaths that were, to a child. One of the things that I hope I'm never strong enough to, I don't ever want that kind of strength.
No.
But these guys' stories are actually able to really help other people put life in perspective and understand football is so much bigger than what you do in the weight room and just the training and all that. You got to be strong in ways you never imagined.
Yeah, 100%. It's hard enough to keep a job when you are perfect condition with no issues, much less now having some issues out there along with it. So fantastic work, man. I appreciate you coming on with me here today. It's just, so good to catch up. So good to cross that line, right? Get to the defensive line. It's like we're antagonists on the field, man, but awesome to have you on the show here today. We will put a link in for your podcast so that people can find you out there. And how can people get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you or just find your podcast?
For right now, LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach out to me. I got an open link, so just invite yourself to be a friend. I'm pretty, cordial with most people. I don't have a reason not to let you in. But that's probably the best way to do it. And you can kind of see my bio, and you also have links to the podcast and all the things that I'm doing on my Instagram as well.
Awesome. Thank you, dude, for coming on. Duane Clemons, stud defensive lineman. That's what a Cal defensive lineman sounds like, by the way. They don't sound like that from the SEC. I'll tell you that right now. A Cal defensive lineman, smart as can be. I just love having you on, man. Love watching you as a player. Love the fact that you're a Golden Bear, and we got to start reaching out to our guys. I appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Mike P. And I look forward to coming back to some events and actually doing this in real life.
Oh, that would be fantastic. For everybody at home, that is today's edition of Ultimate Insider for Bear Insider. I'm Mike Pawlawski. As always, go Bears.
Go Bears.